I'm Alexandra Frazee. I'm representing conventional agriculture.
I'm Sarah Davidson, and I'm representing conventional farming, agriculture, and tourism.
By the year 2050, the human population is projected to reach 9 billion people. Today, we already struggle feeding the existing 7 billion. This staggering statistic illustrates how much we desperately need a concrete way to provide enough food for the rising generations. According to Nature magazine, in 2012, each conventional farmer feeds around 150 people annually. Conventional farming meets and accommodates the world's growing needs. Conventional farming has many positive aspects. However, we're going to focus on production, economics, and health. With nearly half of the world living in poverty, people desperately need an affordable way to access healthy produce. Conventional methods produce high yields at sufficient rates, and farmers work steadily to increase their yields annually. In addition to higher yields, there are many more conventional farms in America. Because of this, the supply of conventionally grown food is much higher and drives the economic price down. Also, conventional farming is not alone in the use of pesticides. Transgenic and organic both use pesticides, although organic likes to cover that fact up. Also, according to a study conducted at the European Commission of Science and for Environmental Policy in 2009, 2 new synthetic pesticides were proven to be more effective and less harmful to other species than their organic competitors.
According to a study by University of Wisconsin in 2013, transgenic yields outnumbered conventional yields at an average of 6 bushels per acre per year.
There's one at the beginning, one at the end, according to what you just posted.
Continue, please.
In some cases, conventional yields have shown to be even just as low as organic. As transgenic, on the other hand, can reduce disease and pests while increasing drought resistance, meaning less crops are being wasted and lost. So considering your yields really aren't as much higher, and we waste a lot less than you do, how can you say that you're more sustainable?
Actually, according to a study done from the USDA, conventional no-till cropping system consistently shows the greatest returns among cropping systems on crop-by-crop or whole system basis. Another pressing issue in the agricultural debate is obesity. One of the greatest causes of obesity is being malnourished and eating bad foods. According to Scientific American magazine in 2012, organic food costs up to 3 times as much as conventionally grown foods.
Point of information, according to an in-depth study done this year in 2014 at the University of British Columbia, it confirmed that the advent of conventional agriculture has severely homogenized the types of food that people eat. Despite the high yields, the yields are of the wrong types of foods, and there are huge plots of nutritionless wheat, corn, and rice. And that trend has actually increased obesity, heart disease, malnutrition, diabetes, and it puts their foods at a widespread risk for drought and insects.
How can you guys say that when you guys produce food in the same monoculture ways as we do also?
To the fact that conventional farming is a lot cheaper than organic. Part of this is only due to subsidies. In 2008, the House Appropriations Committee found that mandatory spending on conventional subsidies was $7.5 billion, whereas organic and local produce only received somewhere around $15 million. Do you think that if organic received the same subsidies as we do, that our costs would be similar, if not the exact same?
Well, no, I do not. And I wasn't actually talking about subsidies, and Alex is going to talk about that later. One of the greatest causes of obesity is being malnourished and eating bad foods. And according to Scientific American magazine in 2012, organic food costs up to 3 times as much as conventionally grown foods. People around the world work every day to provide food for their families. And more than 1 billion of them live on less than $2 a day. This brings up the issue of poverty. People don't have enough money to pay for organically grown food. Conventional, however, has higher yields and is more cost-effective than other methods. It is thought by many that pesticides are excessive and unnecessary, when in actuality, While using pesticides, conventional farmers have a much higher chance of crop success, meaning more money for the farmer, according to an article in Good Magazine in 2013.
Point of information. According to Northern Michigan University graduate and founder of EASY in 2011, conventional agriculture requires large amounts of oil to produce, transport, and apply fertilizers and pesticides. It represents 41% of overall energy costs, being the least efficient in terms of energy use. So how can you say that using conventional are the most sustainable when your methods demand so much money and energy?
Well, in a study from Cambridge University in 2005, pesticides have enabled farmers to modify production systems to decrease the amount of fossil fuels we use and increase crop productivity without sustaining higher losses likely to occur from increased susceptibility to damage effects of pests.
Information. According to Northern Michigan University graduate and founder of EarthEasy.com in 2011 as well, the extra energy you require for fertilizer production and farm fuel use emit almost 40% more greenhouse gases in comparison to organic system. What do you have to say to that?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So according to Northern Michigan University graduate and founder of EarthEasy.com in 2011, the extra energy that you require for fertilizer production and farm fuel use emit almost 40% more greenhouse gases in comparison to organic systems. And you were stating how your emissions are so what do you have to say about that?
Well, transgenic uses the exact same kind of. Transgenic also uses synthetic pesticides, so the greenhouse emissions should be relatively similar.
Point of information.
The vast majority of the food produced in the developed world comes from conventional agriculture. According to UN Food and Agriculture Organization, an average of 92% of yields produced in the developed countries are produced by conventional agriculture. Since World War II, the Second Great Revolution, global food production and efficiency rates have increased by 88%. Conventional agriculture is much more land efficient than both organic and transgenic methods, and the yields of conventional farming are on average 20% higher than that of organic methods. That is the equivalent to 1 in every 5 people not getting the necessary food to live. Think of it this way. The yields of organic farming is like going to work 80% of the time. You're going to get fired. Similarly, if you provide 80% of efficiency to another method, you will not succeed in the long run. According to Jonathan Foley, head of the California Academy of Sciences, conventional agriculture is more land efficient than organic farming and therefore causes less deforestation and loss of biodiversity.
Point of information.
He believes that the loss of forests and biodiversity cancel out the benefits of organic agriculture. Overall, the production of conventional agriculture does have some drawbacks. However, the positive pieces definitely outweigh the negatives.
Conventional farming is a beneficial farming method that not only produces a higher yield, but saves money as well. Many factors are involved when discussing the advantages of economics in conventional farming. However, the few I will mention today will further my argument sufficiently. According to the USDA in 2007, conventional farms don't require the use of many laborers. The fewer employees the farmer has to pay, the greater profit he or she receives. This results in a lower price for non-commodity produce, like avocados. There are multiple reasons why conventional farming is financially efficient. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in 2014, market and distribution chains of conventional farming are relatively efficient.
Earlier you said that conventional had the highest yields. However, according to researchers at the University of Minnesota's Institute on the Environment and McGill University in 2012, when best management practices are used for organic crops, overall yields can be as high as 90% of conventional yields. But that doesn't even matter because it isn't the growth of the crops, but the distribution that is leaving millions starving.
Conventional no-till cropping system consistently shows greater returns among cropping systems on crop-by-crop or whole system basis, according to a study from the USDA.
Point of information. 30 years ago, the University of San Diego conducted in-depth research which proved that when the industry of conventional agriculture was born, we were born with a paradigm that we had unlimited resources, and that's why the high inputs were used at first. Yet we continue with this prolonged addiction to tradition, and we keep using these unsustainable methods. But now we must face the facts that we literally do not have enough resources to support the methods that you are proposing should be continued.
According to the Institute of Responsible Technology, U.S. farmers sprayed an extra 383 million pounds of herbicide on GMOs between 1996 and 2008. So how are you telling us that we are unsustainable when you guys do the same thing?
Point of information. The U.S. Geological Survey in 2014 spoke to pesticide contamination of groundwater through leaching. Destructive chemicals are ending up in water supplies for used drinking water by more than 50% of the nation. Did you know that only 0.24% of the water on Earth is accessible and fresh? How can you knowingly pollute this little bit we have left?
Conventional crops are being reported by their pesticides, but according to Scientific American, over 20 chemicals used in growing and processing organic crops that are approved by the U.S. organic standards are not reported by the government. So how do we really know how many pesticides organic foods have when no one is keeping watch on them? Subsidies play a key role in feeding the planet. Because of subsidies, conventional farmers are able to develop their farms as well as keep their crop prices low.
You spoke to the fact that subsidies are pivotal in providing food to the world. However, subsidies awarded to conventional farming can lead to overproduction of certain crops, leaving prices to fall, sometimes even below the price of production. According to the National Center for Policy Analysis in 2013, there are 10 million people in Africa that depend on the sale of their cotton crops. These people lose nearly $250 million each year because of subsidies awarded to your farming methods.
Subsidies provide the world. Subsidies provide the world with lower crop prices. If subsidies were in effect, crop prices would rise substantially. According to Iowa State University in 2006, the reason why corn farmers are able to sell at such a low price and remain in business is that U.S. subsidies keep them afloat. Foreign countries depend on low U.S. export prices. Subsidies are the reason why conventional farming is capable of feeding the planet. If these subsidies aren't in place, developing countries won't be able to afford the food they need to survive. According to the United Nations, nearly half of the world's population, 2.8 billion people, live on less than $2 a day. And about 20% of the world's population, 1.2 billion people, live on less than $1 a day. Decreasing government subsidies won't help anyone. It will only cause a loss of profit for farmers. It will not only cause a loss of profit for farmers, it will cause devastation to those who are struggling to live on the little money that they have. Conventional
information.
Our farming is the only way these people are capable of purchasing food to survive.
It was the shift from traditional subsistence to conventional agriculture that caused those people's lands to be degraded in the first place. Conventional agriculture is the primary cause of deforestation, according to the United Nations University in 2013. Half the world's land is used for agriculture, yet genetically modified crops can be grown on these lands that have been salinized and deforested and degraded and destroyed by overuse of conventional methods.
A study from the Global Harvest Initiative shows that without modern farming in 2015, if global food were to be achieved without conventional methods, 60% more land would have been required to produce the same amount of food. Meaning that, in that fact, more forests would have been killed.
Point of information. How can you call yourself sustainable and preventing land erosion when, according to National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in 2014, it is estimated that 38% of the world's cultivated land has been destroyed by conventional farming?
You say conventional farming negatively affects the environment. However, according to the EPA, the conventional industry is more effective and sophisticated today. Environmental regulation is seen as an unavoidable part of the cost of doing business. Industry no longer fights the regulation of the principle. The attitude today is, how do we make it work? Conventional farming is a beneficial and efficient farming method. There are so many ways conventional products save the consumer money. Even more importantly, conventional farming methods are key to feeding the world. The economics of conventional farming help keep crops affordable to those who don't have a lot to spend.
Okay, so the last speaker.
Out of the three types of agriculture, conventional farming is the best method to feed our growing population. As my colleagues have said, conventional farming is the reason why we are able to feed this rapidly growing population. Not only does it have the highest yields, around 25% higher than organic crops, but conventional foods are inexpensive, according to Michael Matthew Knight. This means 1 minute includes giving it 1%. This means,
Not according to what you sent us.
okay, go ahead.
This is a great
According to International Food Policy Research Institute, GM crops have greater crop yield than conventional by 150%, with 50% lower use of pesticides. What do you have to say to that?
I never really said conventional had a higher yield than GMO crops, but also according to the USDA, food production has risen in the past 50 years. World Bank estimates that between 70 to 90% of the recent increases in food production is because of the result of conventional agriculture.
For your information. According to Mending the Earth in 1991, pesticide use has increased 12-fold in this country over the last 30 years, yet the percentage of crop losses before harvest has doubled. How can you say conventional is better if there's less yield?
I'm going to talk later in my according to the EPA, pesticides are used. According to the EPA, pesticides are the only effective way to control pests and manage weeds. Also, the use of pesticides directly relates to the consumer by creating lower prices on the foods. Also, I would like to state that according to the National Center for Food and Agricultural Policy, pesticides found in organic crops like rotatine are deadly and can kill many species, including us. Not only that, but in 2005, it was pulled in the U.S. due to health concerns, but reapproved in 2010 for organic production. How can our planet claim that you guys rarely use pesticides when you use dangerous ones like these? As my teammate Alex stated, the difference of $1 between conventional foods and organic foods is huge when some families are struggling to make less than $2 a day. Conventional farming is needed if we want to supply the projected 9 billion people in 2050. Many people assume that conventional crops are worse for human health, but according to Michelle Graham, an associate director for Stanford Medical School's Office of Communication and Public Affairs, found that there's no evidence saying organic is indeed better for us than conventional foods. According to Stanford University, there's around 250 studies comparing the nutrient content in organic and conventional foods.
A study done by Princeton University in 2010 found that nearly 60% of herbicides, 90% of fungicides, and 30% of insecticides contain cancer-causing chemicals. Why does the conventional food production industry not take into consideration the serious health effects caused by these inputs?
One, I'm not talking about cancer, and second, there have been many studies between organic and conventional foods, which have different results like yours do, but the one I told you is correct. According to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, found 55 articles that were satisfactory quality. On the basis of a systematic review of studies of satisfactory quality, there's no evidence of a difference in nutritional quality between organically and conventional produced foods.
Point
These
of
studies
information.
examined fruits, vegetables, and grains, and all the research done found that there is little evidence between organic and conventional foods in nutritional content.
According to the study by the National Center for Biotechnology, information in 2012, 20% of workers exposed to pesticides show acute poisoning and alterations to the neurological, respiratory, circulatory, and reproductive systems.
Although farmers in developing countries do not have advanced safety tools, according to the EPA, every approved pesticide goes through rigorous testing to see if it's safe for humans' use before being approved for use. Also, according to the EPA, all pesticides approved by the EPA go through a cumulative risk assessment to test to verify that they are safe for human consumption. Though conventional farming uses pesticides, it is necessary if we want to keep the crops alive and create the highest yields. Both organic and transgenic farming use pesticides as well.
You say that you are sustainable enough to feed the world's population when, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in 2014, more than 50% of the water intended for conventional crops is never taken up by the plants and is needlessly wasted. How is this sustainable, and how do you get a higher yield from wasting water?
Well, and I wasn't talking about water, but according to Richard Stishman, over 75% of genetically modified are to increase crop tolerance of herbicides. Where these crops are grown, there's been a massive increase in herbicide use. So you guys use just as much pesticides, maybe more than we do. According to Stanford Medicine, conventional crops and organic crops are both exposed to pesticides, which are just within the safety lines. And graph. So take a look at these 6 graphs. In graph A, it shows the yields in tons per acre. Conventional foods have the highest yield in each category, unlike organic. If we are supposed to feed the 9 billion people, then we need a method that works. That method is conventional farming. And then graph B and C, D, E, F, it shows the percent crop damage at harvest, and each time organic farming is always winning. And conventional farming is the best method because it's a realistic farming method on how we're going to be able to feed the billions of people living on our planet. Conventional farming is the only way to feed the planet. In the past century, the population of Earth has increased from 1.6 billion to more than 7 billion people. The reason why we are able to feed this huge population is because of conventional farming. There are many benefits of conventional farming. One is that conventional foods have a longer shelf life than traditionally grown foods. This means that it stays longer on our planet instead of being wasted. Second, there are many conventional farms, which creates a lower demand of the product. This, in return, makes the food cheaper for us, the consumers. Lastly, conventional farming has been used for the past several decades. It worked back then, and it continues to work today. Truth is, 842 million people in 2011 to 2013, around 1 in 8 people in the world are suffering from chronic hunger, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Now I ask you, fellow listeners, how else do you see us feeding the projected 9 billion people by 2050? I'll tell you, and the answer is very plain and simple. The key to this problem is conventional farming. Thank you.
First of all, audience, we're not quite done, so have a seat, please. We want to thank you for being here. Normally at this point in time, we would do question and answer. We know we're running up against the bell. It took us a little longer this period than last period. I want you to know that while it might seem like everyone knew what each other was asking, all of this was completely off research. They've never heard each other's questions and answers before. They all practiced in isolation. Really quickly, so the audience can see what percent by hand, I'll call it something, what percent of the information do you think you researched versus you used? Justin?
Like maybe 10%.
Okay, so you think you only used 10% of it?
Yeah.
Okay. 20% of what you researched you used? Okay, so really quickly, not based on what topic you were given in the debate, what percent of you would go out when you move out of the house, what percent of you would go out and buy organic? What percent of you would go out and buy conventional? What percent of you would go out and buy transgenic? Okay, Ruby, would you like to say something?
Well, the only reason I say this is because transgenic is found in a lot, in most conventional, I think it's like around like 80% of conventional foods anyways, and I think around 20% of organic. So a lot of you are eating GMOs right now, even if you don't know.
Even if it doesn't say that there's
Yeah.
Yeah, organically labeled foods also can have trace amounts of genetically modified foods in it, so even if it says that it's organic, you can't necessarily trust that because the USDA has all these like weird regulations around it. So basically you're eating GMOs.
Hey, can somebody currently tell me of the corn grown in the United States, what percent is transgenic? 80%, okay. One or two quick questions before the bell rings from the audience. That's about. Okay, thank you for attending.